Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rekt Capital and welcome back here to the Rekt Capital channel here on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me in today's video. We're going to be talking about the three macro triangles in a lot of detail. We've seen these cyclically, and even if you focus on these blue vertical halving events, you can notice that these triangles form prior to those halving events. So those halvings are instrumental in terms of just the formation of these three macro triangles, and we're going to be delineating the specific phases of these triangles just to understand where in the market cycle are we right now. So thanks so much for joining me. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't. And later on in today's episode, we're also going to be talking about our partner here on the channel, Veracity, and their project and the major developments that they've been working on over the past few months. So let's dive into the video, and I hope you stick around for the segment at the end as well. So these are the three macro triangles. And if we just focus first on what these triangles essentially mean, this is the diagonal resistance. This is the base of this triangle. So essentially, whenever we see a bull market peak, Bitcoin's price action forms a descending triangle, which is a macro bearish structure. And whenever we see a breakdown from the base of that descending triangle after having made macro lower highs, showcasing that buyers don't have the strength to prop price up any higher than the all-time highs and even below that. Once we see these series of lower highs form, we see some bouncing from the base of that triangle, but ultimately we lose that triangle support and then flip it into resistance, as we can see here. This is a picture perfect breakdown via a weekly close below the triangle base, and then a upside wick into that base just to flip it into a new resistance, and then rejection. So essentially, this is the confirmation of further downtrend continuation. So this is essentially the downtrend acceleration phase, and then you see that final capitulation in the form of a long downside wick. So just hammer out that base, hammer out that generational bear market bottom before consolidating for many months, just sideways really, forming an accumulation range at those bear market lows, essentially being the accumulation range for a new market cycle. And so when we focus on this sideways price action, at some point during that sideways price action, we see a breakout beyond the black diagonal resistance. And this black diagonal resistance being the resistance that forced a lower high and essentially forcing lower highs consistently over that bear market. At some point, this is broken. This diagonal resistance is broken, and then maybe even retested as a support, as we can see here. Picture perfect retest here before continuation into a new macro uptrend, which of course begins prior to the halving event, but we don't see tremendous upside leading into that halving. The tremendous upside happens after the halving event. So exponential upside occurs after the halving event, not before the halving, although before the halving we already see the beginning of a macro uptrend. So first of all, we just need to summarize that this is downtrend acceleration after breaking down from that descending triangle, and we see a certain retracement depth there. So 65% over here in this market cycle, 50% in this market cycle, and we'll be talking about this market cycle in a bit more detail in just a moment. But first of all, breakdown, downtrend acceleration, capitulation phase, sideways accumulation before breakout beyond that lower high diagonal resistance into a new macro uptrend, and then the macro uptrend speeds up, accelerates, and goes exponential and parabolic, in fact, after the halving event. So if we just focus on this market cycle very quickly, then this is definitely downtrend acceleration, capitulation in the form of these downside wicks hammering out a base at the bear market generational bottom, and we see a minus 50% retracement after losing this descending triangle base. And then once we sufficiently manage to curl up after forming an accumulation range at lows, break out beyond the diagonal resistance, and then a new market cycle occurs. But by the same token, we see March 2020 retest the top of this accumulation range, which is quite interesting prior to the halving. and then we see exponentiality after the halving event. So just looking at these two market cycles, in any case, we see that prior to the halving, 366 days approximately prior to the halving, or 396 days in this case, as you can see, we see a break of that downtrend occur after that. So that's essentially around 450 to 400 days prior to the halving event that we see the macro downtrend end. That's what it's about. The macro ending, the macro downtrend ending, and a new macro uptrend beginning. And this coincides with leaving the accumulation range. And so if we were to see something similar happen at the soonest 400 days prior to halving number 4 in Bitcoin's history, April 2024 approximately, we will see a breakout into a new macro uptrend in late quarter one of 2023. And what that also signifies is that we probably will see a bottom in quarter 4 of this year, maybe even November. But the fact that we haven't seen the retracement depths of 50% since losing this diagonal, this descending triangle, or we haven't seen a 65%, this is essentially just showcasing the range of whether it's a 50% drop from the descending triangle base or a 65% drop. And you can see that a 50% drop would correspond to 17k and 65% would correspond to 12k. So we do have a wide range here. But if you just think about it, Bitcoin was very close in just tagging the top of that, the 50% drop. So that was about a 48%, 49% retracement. So historically, it does just graze that range, although certainly there is scope for a lower low, a new absolute bottom in this bear market, just to fall into this range, to be historically accurate with the historical retracement depths that we see after the descending triangle base breaks down. So that's something to watch out for. At the moment, we've seen a flick up. The yellow circle showcases downtrend acceleration, and we're at a point in time in the cycle where downtrend acceleration may be slowing down, right? So this is not a acceleration. We may be transitioning into a consolidation phase potentially, or if we're going to see that final lower low, then this is still the downtrend acceleration phase. Apologies. But in consolidation phases, we move sideways for multiple months. Is Bitcoin really ready for that? Because if we focus on downtrend acceleration phases, we don't really see many relief rallies unless we see them retest the old support as a resistance to reject lower. Here we don't see many relief rallies either. It's just a capitulation candle. So have we seen capitulation already? Are we ready for that sideways movement? That remains to be seen. I do feel that we could see a drop into this range still. That's something to still be at least open to, historically speaking. But if we start to formulate a sideways range, then the macro downtrend will be broken in late quarter 1, and until then it's all about noise. It's just going to be noisy. It's going to be moving up, moving down, consolidation, sideways movement, no real macro trend happening there. So if we do get that opportunity to buy a little bit lower in this historical retracement depth range of minus 50% to 65% retracement from the descending triangle breakdown, that's something worth watching. In my opinion, that's what I'm going to be watching for, at least personally. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to stick around for the segment about our sponsor here on the channel today, Veracity, to tune in to all their different updates and major developments that they've been working over the past few months. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, and let's dive into the segment about Veracity. Hey guys, and welcome back to this part of the segment where we're going to be talking about a sponsor here in today's video, Veracity. We'll be talking about Veracity in a bit more detail, and Veracity is a protocol and product layer platform for esports and video entertainment, and they have the first patented ad tech protocol on the blockchain. And we're going to be talking about how this patent has been accepted in the USA, but also in China, and the various developments that have since emerged since their patent has been accepted. We'll be talking about why ad fraud is such a major thing in the space and how Veracity can change the landscape of video advertising and all advertising in general. And we'll be touching upon NFTs as well, and fraud and scams in NFTs, and how Veracity can help change that landscape as well. So let's dive right into the video. And let's talk about first why ad fraud is such a major hindrance in the space. And in general, we can see here from Veracity's tweet about ad fraud that ad fraud makes it harder for brands to reach customers, and because of this there's a 9% premium on acquisition costs. So actually companies have to spend a bit more money to be able to reach actual customers, which aren't bots. They're actually human companies, people interacting with the advertising. And Veracity has a goal of preventing advertising fraud and saving brands, companies, people money, and allowing the continued growth for the sector in general. And it's often the case that people wonder why veracity is important in advertising, aside from saving money for people, advertisers, and companies. Well, the major thing to note here is that 50% of advertisers surveyed would pay up to 15% more for traffic that was guaranteed to be ad fraud free. And that 15% translates into 62 million out of an average 407 million budget per advertiser. And that's how much is wasted to ad fraud each year. So it's a substantial saving, what Veracity is trying to help companies do. A substantial saving, 15%, enabling higher ROI for advertisers and transparency for publishers. So this is not just about the advertising companies per se, but also about publishers offering up unique content. And what's a major step for Veracity is that their patents are going global. Proof of view, their now patented proof of view technology is now patented in the USA. So that just brings them closer to just implementing that technology, proof of view, in reality, and going to the next step in helping companies and publishers in terms of transparency and content, and companies in terms of expenditure when it comes to advertising. And also, here's the founder of Veracity, Mark here, RJ Mark, that NFTs, talking about the NFT landscape and how fraud and scams are quite persistent in the NFT space, and the patented proof of view is supposed to stop fraud in the NFT space and authenticate NFTs and verify owners. So over time, Veracity, which is in of itself one of the very few cryptocurrency projects that has a patent, they will also, by the same token, launch the only marketplace solution that scales without risk of fraud and liability. But going along with that, we know that the patent has been accepted in the USA, which is a major market, but the patent is already accepted in the Chinese market as well. And the fact that Veracity's proof of view has passed examination by the Chinese Patent Office is explored in a bit more detail in this press release, but we also get to learn a bit more about the proof of view concept and technology, which ensures that content and ads viewed via content players with a proof of view integration are served to real viewers. And that's done via a verifiable on-chain and recorded immutability through Veracity's purpose-built ledger technology. And with wider adoption come some additional challenges. And those challenges may lie in the fact that a third of Chinese advertisers' ad traffic is fake or invalid, which means that this proof of view patent acceptance in China is going to enable Veracity to really make a change in that landscape, in that market, and it's uniquely positioned to lead that innovation and deliver ad fraud prevention. And so we know that the advertising spend is going to increase by 7% in 2022 alone. But going forward, this ad spend is probably going to be incrementally, if not drastically, increasing over time. So with that being said, if Veracity is truly going to make its mark, it's going to have to decrease this 30% figure as ad traffic and ad expenditure goes up. So definitely Veracity is uniquely positioned to make a big impact in that market. And with the patents accepted in the US and in China, having that presence pretty much globally in two of the largest markets available, there's also been increased efforts in advancing enterprise adoption, and recently Veracity has been included in the IAB vendor list globally, which is a huge second step after the platform adoption by Brightcove. But let's talk about the IAB vendor list, where we see 750 member companies, including major platforms like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Snap. We're seeing that this is a group worth joining. And here's a press release that speaks about this in a bit more detail, where the inclusion of the VeriViews ad stack, which is powered by that patented proof of view technology that we've been speaking about, is now in the global vendor list. And RJ Mark, the founder at Veracity, just stresses how important this inclusion is in the global vendor list, which is home to many important, well-known global companies, and how Veracity is dedicated to connecting with enterprise clients, but at the same time being committed to increasing transparency and improving the standards within the ad industry, making them more transparent, saving companies money, but at the same time discarding invalid traffic, reducing payment terms for publishers, and maximizing ROI on ad campaigns for brands. So in any case, that's about it for this video on Veracity. I hope you enjoyed this one. Feel free to check out the links in the description down below to learn more about the project, and stay tuned. Keep abreast of their major developments, which are occurring on a regular basis, month by month. There is always something new coming out. This is only the beginning for Veracity. They've made huge leaps in just a little under a year, from just having the patents accepted to actually having VeriView's ad stack being ready to be deployed in the market, and with being added to the IAB global vendor list, they're in good company to really succeed going forward. So in any case, that's about it for today's video. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.